The most active individuals in the collector car hobby right now are 35 years old. Let's take a look at the formative years of those who are 35. People are getting their licenses around 2002, 2003. The first Fast and the Furious came out a year prior. Second Fast and the Furious comes out. You have that. And all of the people who were 35 have all been raised on Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, etc. But the big one, Gran Turismo. As a 35-year-old, I can speak to the impact that game had on me. It's got so much the passion that I have for this hobby. And you have the interesting confluence of now all those cars that were then new when the first Gran Turismo came out, and most of them now when the second Gran Turismo came out, those are now cars that, as crazy as it is to say, they're 25 years and older, which means that they can now legally be imported into the United States. With the California is a little bit more difficult, but we'll leave that one alone. For the people who are now most active in the collector car hobby, they can now have all the cars that they really wanted and lusted after and worked for during their most formative years. I mean, I can speak to this one personally. I'm 12 years old. The amount of time and the amount of conflict I had with my parents, I should be doing homework. Oh, you need to be doing this, this, and that. And I just needed 15 more minutes on Gran Turismo so I could get enough credits to go buy this car. Now I can go have that in real life. Ultimately, everyone is seeing the end product right now. They're seeing the cars that we have on Bring a Trailer, 11 cars, a very cohesively put together group. The way that it came together was much more organic than that. It wasn't like we woke up one day and said, this is what we're doing, and we started from zero. It began with the purchase of a single car, which is, one of the cars that's at auction, a midnight purple R33 GTR with 25,000 kilometers on it that was in impeccable condition. I've been looking at this stuff a long time, and you just never see a car like that. Let's get this thing. Anyone who thinks that we were out there buying these cars for nothing and doing this and doing that is sorely mistaken. If you want the best cars, you have to pay the best money. It started with the one car. It started with the GTR. The second car was the Pulsar. The Pulsar got offered to me by a buddy in Japan who said, do you have anyone who'd be interested in this? Thinking that I'd want to broker it or something. I never see this type of thing. And I mean, there are, to my knowledge, there are 3 Nismo Pulsars in the US, 2 of them owned by a buddy of mine. So I'm thinking to myself, all right, okay, I'll never see one of these things, period, as is, one, available for sale. 1, 2, I'll never see one with 4,500 kilometers on it. 3, the only one that the CEO of Nismo owned, give me the car. Just give me the car. They didn't even hesitate, just here, give me the car. And then I'm talking with a really good client and friend, and then just the idea started to evolve into, okay, we have some cool stuff here, but what are we doing? Then we wound up with the Mugen Integra Type R, which was another one where I saw it and I said, 25,000 kilometers and, as new condition, red seats, all the factory Mugen stuff. I haven't seen this kind of thing before. It had just become legal. So I said, I've always been curious about one of these. When I was younger, I didn't quite appreciate Hondas, and I get it more now. So I said, I'm curious about this. Let's take that. And then next thing you know, we had objectives. We had to have an NSXR because to me, the NSXR, it is the most defining supercar to have ever left Japan. At the risk of being crushed by the internet hive mind, I personally think it's a more significant car than the LFA. I think it is up there with the Toyota 2000 GT in terms of significance to the country. The risk of throwing some shade at people who are importing cars. There's a certain approach that most people take, which is that you have something that in another part of the world is just seen as normal. It's quotidian. And now they're legal here. It's 25 years old. Hey, we're gonna bring it here. This is a little bit of a little bit of forbidden fruit, a little bit of excitement. We'll do a few little things here and there that and take a car that was purchased for $15,000 overseas and spit and do this and that, and boom, all of a sudden, $50,000, $60,000. You see these ex-ministry defenders, vast majority of defenders overseas they were farm trucks. They were implements. They weren't things for guys to go tool around the Hamptons. It was a tool. Wolf G wagons. These were things that were used by the military. They were beat to hell. And now, you send the car somewhere in Eastern Europe, throw a lick of paint on it, give it a goofy interior and a facelifted front from a later G wagon and some later wheels, and all of a sudden you have guys in the Hamptons and guys in Martha's Vineyard losing their minds over this stuff. The same thing has been happening for years with Japanese cars as well, where you have guys bringing in old stuff. Old GTRs that have seen better days. So you have guys bringing in lower third examples that are basically being discarded out of their home country because they're just old things. But then they come here or before they even come, guys are just saying, here, buy this car. It's in Japan, it's on its way here. Guy in the United States, without ever seeing the car, goes, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They get sold the car for all the money. Car shows up. It needs untold amount of dollars in refurbishment, cosmetically and mechanically, and by the end of it, you still have something that's not a pure thing. That's the vast majority of what goes on with car importing, and it's not the approach that we took with this. We wanted to answer a different question, which was, what if we go for the stuff that the guys in Japan don't want to sell? The stuff that they want to keep in Japan. Because with a lot of these cars, I mean, there were certain cars we had difficulty buying them and had to go jump through some hoops, not because of the car was in a far-flung location or not because we didn't speak the language, but because they didn't want the car going to a foreigner. They wanted the car to stay in Japan with a Japanese owner. We wanted to go for those cars. We wanted to go for the cars that were a source of national pride. For us, the most challenging one was the NSXR. In addition to the fact that, and thankfully we wound up with a car that was impossibly rare. I mean, Brooklyn's green. I mean, look, I love a green car. That car in green with the white wheels and the red badges and all that stuff. Honda doesn't allow access to their internal production data. I'd been under the impression that there were 14 NSXRs that were built in green. When the auction launched, the Honda guys who jumped in there seemed to think that the number is a lot lower than that. I've been hearing 6. So we're talking properly rare. Much like the Ford GT in the United States, NSXRs are most common in Japan. It's a place where you're most easily able to find one. It is also the place where the car is most valuable. There are some cars in Hong Kong and other places in Southeast Asia. They tend to be pretty high quality. Their pricing is absolutely Japanese pricing or even worse. And the big question mark was, to my knowledge, it was actually a client of mine who had it. I've only ever seen one other car listed for sale publicly in the United States, and that was a long time ago. No one else has tried it. You have a dynamic where, okay, so the cars are in Japan, but as far as I can observe, the Japanese pay good money for them in Japan. So we got this NSXR, and I'm trying not to be too in love with it because it really is a special thing. It genuinely is a special thing. And what's interesting is that there are a number of them here now, and the guys are piping in with the numbers that they've paid for cars. And there are guys in the United States who understand and appreciate what these cars are worth. They paid that money. They're happy they paid that money. And it is my belief that there will be someone out there who understands this and understands the significance that this car has to the automotive storyline of the nation of Japan. It has all of the things that collectors, like seasoned collectors, look for. It has all that stuff, in addition to being a wonderful car to drive. Exceptionally good in stock form, which, one of the issues that you have with certain cars is that some of their potential really needs to be unlocked with modifications. Like stock Supra is super, super cool. But the legend of the Supra was built not in its stock form. It was built because it was easily modified. The Nissan Skyline GTR R32 V-Spec 2 N1 that we wound up with, which, being a lover of homologation cars, that's the coolest homologation car of the entire crew. I mean, ridiculously rare, and a car that was built to actually race. Wasn't built to make it legal to race. It was meant to be converted into a race car to go race. And we found this thing with less than 8,000 kilometers on the clock that had hardly been touched. The level of focus that they went to was really, really impressive. So for example, they have a special rear windscreen. So normal cars have a rear windscreen wiper. They deleted it out of this car, made special glass for it so that it wouldn't have it. That doesn't sound that impressive. The coolest thing about the N1s is that every other GTR of that era has, at bare minimum, a 3-stage paint process, and in the case of a lot of the metallics and pearls, have a 5-stage paint process. The N1's got a single stage, just dusting of paint that saves 12 pounds over the other lightest GTR paint. They were that focused that they wanted to make, that they were thinking about paint weight. Despite its obvious, glaring racing intentions, it's still a very easy, competent car to drive. It's not loud, punishing. The clutch is still light and easy to use. The shifter's easy. The steering is easy. If you wanted to go daily drive that N1, you could, despite it being something that, with a few light tweaks, was ready to go do battle on the track. And that's the case with pretty much all of these cars. They really were multi-purpose tools. The NSXR. The legend of that car wasn't from guys just keeping them in garages with 500 miles on the clock. The legend came from, when 15 years ago, when we were seeing guys online listing cars with 300,000 miles on the clock. And it wasn't a clapped out piece of junk either. It was still a constituent vehicle that you could go drive. It wasn't even a question. They worked. The other thing is that specifically NSXR has historically always been worth the most in Japan. That car to the Japanese, the words of Jeremy Clarkson, it's a scaled down version of God. So, historically, when you look at what the cars had sold for previously in other locations, now to be fair, the quality of the cars in other locations was not necessarily as nice as they were in Japan. A lot of the cars that are in the UK are fine, but not, they are not necessarily the same average quality level of the cars that are in Japan. We have set reserves on certain cars are below what we paid. We wanted to see if Americans could appreciate investment grade Japanese cars. It's one thing, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the guy with, a Drift S13 or an S14, something like that. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Or a guy with, a modded out Integra or Civic or what have you. But it was our thesis that the Gran Turismo generation is coming of age. And we can't be the only ones out there who wish to recreate our virtual Gran Turismo garage in real life. We can't be the only ones. We wanted to get out there and we wanted to test that. So we did. And maybe we'll be right, maybe we'll be wrong. That's what we did, and that's why we're here, and I couldn't be more proud of what we did, regardless of the outcome, and I really mean that. There are many people who, again, if those people are watching, I really, really hope that you all see this and look at my face and see how much how much I appreciate every last person who helped with this. We are just really proud to represent the quality of cars that we have, the significance of the cars that we have, and to offer them all up to everyone. That's what we're really proud of.
Premier Financial Services makes it easier and more affordable than you could possibly imagine to own your dream car. Their Simple Lease is one of the most powerful tools in the world of exotic car financing. You get all the benefits like the tax savings and the low payments of a lease with all the additional benefits that you normally find in a traditional finance arrangement. You can build up equity, you can pay it off early, you can trade in and out of cars because you get a very clear and easy to understand amortization table to understand what your payoff will be any month throughout your term. And all the while, the amazing team from Premier Financial Services will be right there to help you along the way. They've been supporters of the VINwiki channel now for 5 years in a row, so we can't thank them enough for that, but mostly we're thankful for the fact that they can help you make it easier than ever to own your dream car. Check them out now.